Shark Tank India Season 4 just started, but we wanted to go all the way back to Season 1 to find out how startups that pitched in that season did later on, how they're doing today in 2025. I'm Caleb Friesen, this is Backstage with Millionaires, and without further ado, let's get started and begin with Wakao Foods, a company that's trying to bring jackfruit from Goa to the world. Founded in 2020 by Sairaj Dhond, a lawyer-turned-entrepreneur, Wakao Foods is redefining plant-based foods with their jackfruit products. Branding themselves as the first jackfruit company, Wakao Foods was born out of Sairaj's realization that 75% of the jackfruit grown in India goes to waste. And so he saw an opportunity to build a business out of that waste, and that's exactly what he did. When Sairaj pitched on Shark Tank India, he was asking for 75 lakh rupees for 5% equity, valuing Wakao Foods at 15 crore rupees. And at the time, Wakao was just a 10-month-old company with a lifetime revenue of 60 lakh rupees. But the sharks were definitely impressed by Sairaj's presentation skills. Peyush Bansal even called him an impressive entrepreneur, and during the pitch, Sairaj laid out his growth strategy focusing on D2C and HORECA, that's hotels, restaurants, and catering. But here's where things get a little bit tricky, because Namita warned him against targeting the HORECA sector, calling it dangerous. And then Vineeta Singh, Namita Thapar, and Ghazal Alagh countered with a joint offer of 75 lakh rupees, but for 30% equity, and they didn't even value his HORECA business. Now, after some negotiations, Sairaj initially accepted a deal on the show at better terms, 75 lakh rupees in exchange for 21% equity, but that's definitely not the deal that he came into the show wanting, and so post-show, he felt the valuation wasn't fair, and he tried to renegotiate with Namita, but the deal fell through after they failed to come to terms with the valuation of the company. And so when it was all said and done, Sairaj was not able to close that deal, but he wasn't disappointed because he believed in his product. And this belief was validated as their sales spiked immediately after the show aired, but what surprised Sairaj was how long-lasting the impact of Shark Tank India has been. Even 3 years later, Wakao continues to attract customers, distributor inquiries, and investor interest thanks to Shark Tank India. But Wakao hasn't just been coasting on their Shark Tank India success, they've actually used the feedback to pivot and grow. They expanded their product range, improved taste and packaging, and introduced new offerings based on customer feedback. That being said though, Sairaj did ultimately end up ignoring Namita's warning about HORECA. The company is stuck with its D2C and HORECA focus, and while Wakao is still bootstrapped, Sairaj revealed that the company's valuation has grown 8 to 10x since Shark Tank India. And despite Anupam's warning about HORECA, it now accounts for 80% of the company's revenue, with products available in over 500 restaurants. And their secret sauce here, a 90% repeat order rate in the HORECA sector, turning it into their cash cow. Oh, and by the way, they're not just limited to India anymore. They've also exported their products to 5 countries, and Wakao isn't slowing down on D2C either. They partnered with Zepto to stock their products in 500 dark stores, and they're also launching India's first jackfruit biryani with a 12-month shelf life with no preservatives. And then there's also Wakao Eats, their QSR experiment targeting vegetarians, and Sairaj believes that these initiatives will be game changers for his D2C business. Okay, so we're gonna get right back to Shark Tank India in just a second, but before we do, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Yenmo. So most of us invest a part of our monthly salary into stocks and mutual funds, and sometimes in the middle of the month there comes an unexpected expense, like for example buying a new phone, or paying the deposit on a new flat, or even going on an unplanned trip. And a lot of the time, unless you have money saved up, there's really only 2 options. One is to liquidate your stocks or your mutual fund investments, which frankly most people don't want to do. They lose out on the compounded growth part of those investments, and they also have to pay capital gains tax of up to 35%. And the other option that we have is taking out a personal loan, which often has interest rates of over 18%. And both of these options are very painful. They're undesirable outcomes. And so Yenmo solves this problem. And they do this by giving a personal loan against your stocks and mutual fund investments, and that too at a fixed interest rate of 10.5%. So no liquidation of your investments, and also relatively low interest rates. And the best part about Yenmo is that you only have to pay interest every month on the amount that you've actually used, and you can also pay the principal amount any time during the loan tenure without any pre-closure charges. So feel free to check out Yenmo next time you're in need of some urgent cash, and I'll put a link to Yenmo in the description down below, and thanks to Yenmo for sponsoring this video. Now, while Sairaj walked away from Shark Tank India with a commitment from the sharks and plenty of buzz after his pitch aired on TV, this next company got neither of those things. This company I'm talking about here is Zypp Electric. Electric. Founded in 2017 by husband-wife duo Akash Gupta and Rashi Agarwal, Zypp Electric is an EV logistics startup that helps e-commerce companies deliver orders using electric scooters. And when Akash and Rashi pitched Zypp on Shark Tank India, they were asking for 2.2 crore rupees for 1% equity, valuing the company at 220 crore rupees. And Akash admits that this was a bold ask, especially because Shark Tank India was still in its first season. Valuations that high were very rare on the show at that time, if not unheard of, but Akash had recently raised between $6 and $7 million at the same valuation and decided to stick with it. Now, some of the sharks bowed out, saying the valuation was too high. Piyush Bansal seemed interested at first, but then he backed out after Akash said that he wanted to build a unicorn, and Akash and Rashi didn't just leave the tank empty-handed. Their pitch didn't even air on TV. Instead, it was later uploaded as part of Shark Tank India's unseen pitches on YouTube, but Akash wasn't disappointed. He said that the experience was fun, and as a B2B business, Zypp didn't really need the marketing boost that the show was offering. Interestingly though, Piyush Bansal later visited Zypp Electric's office hoping to invest, and Ashneer Grover and Aman Gupta, who weren't even on the panel that day when Zypp pitched, also reached out later on. But despite negotiations, no deals were finalized. And this turned out to be a huge missed opportunity for the sharks. Back when Zypp pitched, they had 2,000 electric scooters on the roads, they were generating 2 crore rupees in monthly revenue, but they were also burning 60 lakh rupees every single month, and Akash had big plans to scale up and turn Zypp into a unicorn within 2 years. And while the company hasn't yet hit unicorn status yet, Zypp's valuation has skyrocketed to nearly 3,000 crore rupees, a 13x jump from their Shark Tank India ask. And they've also scaled their fleet 10x to 21,000 electric scooters and closed FY24 with 300 crore rupees in revenue. And what's even more impressive is that Zypp has gone from burning cash to becoming operationally profitable. Now, unlike Zypp Electric, which didn't secure a deal on Shark Tank India, this next company not only got a commitment, but also ended up raising 3 times the initial amount promised. The company I'm talking about here is the Renal Project. Founded in 2019 by Shashank Modia, the Renal Project is on a mission to make affordable dialysis more accessible for patients suffering from chronic kidney diseases. And they're doing this by setting up small 2 to 3 bed dialysis centers in smaller towns and cities, bridging the gap for patients who otherwise would have to travel long distances for treatment. And when Shashank pitched on Shark Tank India, the Renal Project had already opened 18 centers across 4 cities in Maharashtra, and they were operating at a monthly revenue run rate of 20 lakh rupees. And so he went in asking for 1 crore rupees in exchange for 3% equity, and by the end of the pitch, Namita Thapar and Aman Gupta were hooked, committing 1 crore rupees for 6% equity. But what happened next was even more interesting. Within 2 months of the episode airing, Shashank had raised 3 crore rupees, 3 times the initial commitment from the same sharks. That is how much they believed in his idea. And while the exact equity dilution wasn't disclosed, this partnership completely transformed the company. Shashank credits both sharks for being actively involved in the company's growth. Aman Gupta helped to revamp the Renal Project's website and branding, even coming up with their new slogan, the dialysis expert. Namita Thapar, on the other hand, leveraged her network of nephrologists and hospitals to expand the Renal Project into new hospitals and partnerships. And today, the Renal Project has doubled its centers from 18 to 40, increased its MRR by 6x from 20 lakh rupees to 1.3 crore rupees, while serving more than 4,000 patients. And the company's valuation has also jumped from 17 crore rupees at the time of the pitch to 72 crore rupees, already giving the sharks a 4x return on their investment. Now, while the Renal Project is saving lives with their giant dialysis machines, this next startup is saving lives with tiny little devices. The company I'm talking about here is Magic Lock. Founded in 2019 by Zubin Bhatt and his father Dhananjay Bhatt, Magic Lock creates an LPG gas safety device designed to automatically shut off the gas supply in the event of a gas leak. It took Dhananjay 9 years to develop this innovative device, but when Magic Lock pitched on Shark Tank India, the company had achieved a lifetime revenue of just 18 lakh rupees, and they were asking for 1.2 crore rupees for 8% equity, valuing the company at 15 crore rupees. However, the sharks raised concerns about the safety and efficacy of this device, and Magic Lock ultimately left the tank empty-handed. But during the pitch, Piyush Bansal expressed interest and even promised to distribute the device free of cost to all Lenskart customers, provided the device could be clinically proven. However, when Zubin and his team followed up, they didn't hear back from Piyush. And despite not securing any funding, the exposure from Shark Tank India proved to be invaluable for this company. Once the episode aired, customers, dealers, and distributors across the country began reaching out, and today Magic Lock has sold their products across 30 Indian states and 8 different countries, generating 1.5 crore rupees in revenue in FY24 alone, all without raising a single rupee from investors. Now, Magic Lock might not have received any funding from the Sharks, but they still gained significant traction after their pitch aired on TV. However, this next company's pitch never made it onto television. Instead, it was later uploaded as part of Shark Tank India's Unseen Pitches playlist, and the startup I'm talking about here is Space Kidz India. Founded by Dr. Srimati Kesan in 2011, Space Kidz India is an aerospace startup fostering experiential scientific learning by helping students to design and build satellites, experiments, and payloads for space missions. As of today, Srimati tells us that Space Kidz India is the only private space organization to launch 27 space missions, and they're also widely known for launching the world's smallest and lightest satellite, Galamsat. And so when Dr. Srimati pitched on Shark Tank India, she asked for 1 crore rupees for 2% equity, valuing the company at 50 crore rupees. But most of the sharks were uncertain about the business model and decided not to invest. But instead of being disappointed, Dr. Srimati called it a beautiful learning experience. And since their Shark Tank India pitch, Space Kidz India has continued to focus on building satellites while also expanding collaborations with international universities in Sri Lanka, Israel, and the United States, strengthening their global presence. The company has secured government grants to develop satellite deployers and support their student satellite programs, and additionally, they've also raised institutional funding for specific aerospace and defense projects, proving their capabilities in the industry. All right, I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you're new here, make sure to check out the playlist where we've covered a bunch of startups that have gone on Shark Tank India, specifically looking at season 1. So if you enjoyed this video, you'll definitely love those videos. But either way, I'm Caleb Friesen. This is Backstage with Millionaires, and I'll catch you in the next one.